If you haven't heard the news in one of our episodes yet, we've reopened our Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise store to kick off the summer. So for the time being, you can visit ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com to stock up and look cool in the summer months. Or, in the southern hemisphere, it's a great time to buy a hoodie or sweatshirt. Regardless, don't delay or you could miss your chance. The link is in every episode's show notes.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 295 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 23 of A Dance with Dragons, that's Daenerys 4.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. Unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers. Well, then we are going to spoil things for you, but regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing well. I'm doing all right. How about you? How you doing?
Good. I'm good. So, I don't know if you know this. Last weekend I was going to the beach.
I did, yes. You told me about that.
Yeah. Did I tell you that it didn't happen?
You did not. I assumed you were having a merry time at the beach all weekend. And Monday, right?
Yeah, I cancelled my day off. I actually worked on Monday as well, so not great.
Oh no. Well, can you share what happened?
I can share. It's a little bit it is my friend, so I have to just be a little bit circumspect. But my friends who have the beach house have two dogs. And they are fostering another dog. And that foster dog is the one that bit me.
Yeah, I remember this, yes.
Okay. I'm not mad keen on this foster dog.
I can't imagine why.
Okay, so we were going to go just their three dogs because that dog scares everyone and we don't want to take normally we would take our dogs, so we'd have all four dogs.
Right, yeah.
But we didn't want to take our dogs. But the day before we were due to leave, they were dog sitting for another dog.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're running a kennel over there, it seems like.
Exactly, right? And this dog had a rap sheet worse than the foster dog.
Okay.
So, imagine the scene. I'm working from home Thursday at my computer. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat, ding! Rat-a-tat-tat-tat, ding!
Yep.
Because I have a typewriter, yes.
Right, yes, of course.
When there's a panic, bang, 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 bang at the door. And I open the door to find neighbour covered in blood. Just like all over her face, her arms, her legs.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I don't know what's happened, but this is the only part of the story that's even slightly funny. She said, I need your phone. And she took my phone out of my hand and walked off with it.
With no indication as to why.
Plus, she doesn't know my password. I'm like, what are you going to do with it? You swan a fly or something?
Paperweight.
My phone! So I follow her up the street to her house and I go around to the backyard and she's in the backyard with I'm going to call them the foster dog and the dog sit dog, okay?
Yes, okay, that makes sense.
So I'm in the backyard with her and the dog sit dog, and that dog is bleeding from multiple places.
Oh no.
And now I get from her that the foster dog and the dog sit dog have had a fight and she's intervened and she's gotten bitten. And
oh gosh.
Carson's at work. Actually, Carson was doing something. The lady's husband is at work, so we've only got two cars between us, and now we've got three places to go. Vet number one, vet number two, and the emergency room, because she's bleeding as well.
Yeah.
I don't actually see foster dog, but it comes up to the screen door and looks out at me. And it looks like it's been the victim of Ramsay Bolton. It's got two beady yellow eyes and then blood, just blood everywhere.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm not painting the scene as well as it should be. There's blood everywhere. I mean, it looks like a crime scene where the production team were told to just go crazy. I mean, like there was absolutely gallons of it.
This sounds horrifying.
Yeah, it was. It was genuinely horrifying. So the reason she needed my phone was because she needed to make phone calls, but she'd lost her phone in the melee. So she wanted me to call her phone. So she eventually gave me my phone back, and I called her phone. And she went back in the house looking for the phone as it rang. And I called it and it went to voicemail. And I called it and it went to voicemail. And I called it and it was just going to voicemail when I heard from inside, I found the phone! I was like, okay.
That's a good thing she let you know that.
I think she might have found it on the second ring and I just kept calling it and just annoying her.
Well, how would you know?
But then the story got worse, right? Because so I agreed. Obviously, I'm not taking both dogs because that would just be round 2 in the back of the car.
Right, yeah. Yes. While moving.
Right. So I take the dog sit dog to its vet, which is quite a long drive in the middle of my day, to be honest. But it lays down on the back seat and it's obviously traumatized, but it's quiet. And so I'm like, that's fine. And we put towels on the back seat. It doesn't bleed everywhere, thankfully. But when we got there, it did not want to get out of the car. It was, I don't know if it recognized the vet or if it was now really hurting from what had happened. Because it was,
right.
They looked like they'd been really, tearing each other apart.
Oh, goodness.
I drag it. And of course, I don't know this dog. I barely know this. I've met this dog 5 minutes ago. I don't know this dog from Adam.
Do you even know its name at this point?
It's called, well, I don't want to say the name of the dog because there are innocent people involved. But so I eventually have to manhandle it out of the car and it's not happy about this at all. And then we walk into the vet and I think I might have hurt it by making it get out of the car because we step through the threshold of the vet and it shakes its head and it sprays blood across the entire... Goodness. I was like, I mean, it's across the floor, it's up the walls. There's a box of Kleenex on top of the counter, the check-in counter, and the Kleenex that's sticking out is now sprayed with blood.
No, oh my goodness.
And so they come out with like the crash car, and they're like,
yeah, oh wow.
And they're like, how are you doing, sir? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing fine. It's not actually my dog. I mean, I'm concerned for it, but it's not my dog, so don't worry about me. But both dogs pulled through. They both got stitches. That one had to stay in the vet overnight. The neighbor got stitches as well. But here's the thing. She sent the foster dog back to the SPCA where it came from and told them to deal with it while she went and got herself patched up, right?
Sure,
so
yeah.
Now I'm thinking, this is great. We're going to go to the beach without the foster dog who I didn't like anyway.
Right, yeah, silver lining.
It's perfect. If she can pull through, if she's not too hurt to go to the beach, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
They got the foster dog back the next day.
No. The stay couldn't have been extended just a few days longer, I guess.
I was like, really? And so they said, we understand if you don't want to come. And I was like, honestly, I don't. That dog is scary and terrifying and bites people.
Including you?
Including me. I mean, I care about me. So yeah, that's why I didn't go to the beach. I maybe I should have done, but to a certain extent, I wanted them to know what I thought of the dog because they're gonna end up adopting this dog because they can't. We took it to a bar to get it adopted, and every time some person came up to it, this is wearing like an adopt me bandana. Every time a person came up to it, she said, "Oh, don't get too close." I'm like,
oh no, that's not the greatest selling pitch right off the bat.
How is this going to work exactly?
Oh, I feel for I don't even know if the dog is male, right?
It's a female, this one.
Okay. Yeah. I feel for her. I mean, it's tough all around. I feel for you. I feel for both dogs in the situation and your friends. It's a tough situation.
Don't worry about me. I'm totally fine. Well, I found the whole thing slightly amusing once I got over the shock of it all,
Well, except for the bitten hand, or I think it was your hand.
Well, that was some time ago. I'm mostly over that, apart from the I hold a grudge against you.
Right. Yes. Understandable. Something bites me. I probably will hold a bit of a grudge too. It's understandable.
I remember when Lucas bit me when he was like 2 years old. Still. Still a little bit peeved about that. All right, well, let's get down to business. How did we leave Daenerys Targaryen? Last we saw of Dany, she was entertaining overtures from Xaro Zoan Daxos.
Yes.
On behalf of Karth, with the ultimate offer of 13 ships to leave Essos. Dany considered the possibility and discussed it with her small council. The vote was split, but hearing the Meereenese talk about how rudely they would be used if she then left them after they supported her, she ultimately declined. This led to a Carthene declaration of war. Mackelly, why don't we give a summary of this one?
All right. Well, Dany dines with Galazza Galare, or Galare. I'm not sure how we want to say that last name.
Galare for sure.
Galare? Okay.
It's such a lovely thing to say, Galazza Galare.
Galazza Galare. That's how I've been saying it, so we'll go with it. Otherwise known as the Green Grace, the High Priestess in Meereen. They're served by 2 of the hostage children from the families of the Great Masters. They are the Green Grace's relatives, and she's glad to see them looking safe and well. Their bondage is not provided Dany with the result she intended, as the sons of the Harpy continue to blight her city. The implicit threat to the young wards is not something Dany can follow through on, despite the encouragement of the Shavepate Skahaz Mokandak.
They discuss the state of the world beyond the walls. Great Cleon of Astapor is dead, as is his successor. Battles on the streets fill the vacuum. The Yunkai wait outside the walls for the infighting to do their job for them. Closer to home, 3 Carthene ships sailed up the Skahazadan overnight, presumably with the intention of choking trade and supplies from coming down the river. They are supported by more ships from New Gis and Tolos. Galazza Galare has a suggestion. Marry. Dany is not surprised. Dany doesn't see how a man can make any of these problems go away, though. The Green Grace semi-agrees, but points out that Daenerys is an invader from across the seas, and always will be to the locals, unless she marries someone of noble blood.
Who? Asks Dany. Why, Hizdahr Loraq. Again, no surprise to Dany. Should she wed him and bear a son, he would be a fulfillment of prophecies. Dany thinks about but doesn't mention her own prophecies of her womb only quickening when a whole catalog of unlikely events occur. Dany needs to change something, and the Green Grace has the foresight, or maybe the audacity, to have Hizdahr on hand. The Green Grace departs so the 2 lovebirds can discuss. Dany tells Hizdahr that the Green Grace believes all her woes can disappear if they marry. Hizdahr doesn't claim that, but he has influence. Why would he want to help Dany? He doesn't deny ambition, but also claims to care about his people. They can't survive another war.
Dany argues that she never wanted war and lists her actions to avoid it, but Hizdahr understands that regardless of her intent, she has harmed the cities of Slavers Bay. Hizdahr suggests that all freedmen stay free, but that new slaves can be captured and traded. Dany will not countenance it. She turns to the personal. What of love? Hizdahr's pragmatic. It might come. He desires her, as anyone would, but he's glad of the upending of the order that her arrival has brought. They kiss, but it is dry and passionless.
Her last objection is that she will one day return to Westeros. He doesn't care. That's in the future. She wants him to prove himself to her. Can he bring 90 days of peace to the streets of Meereen? If he can, they will wed on the 91st. He departs. Sir Barristan, always attentive, suggests an alternative. Head to Westeros now. Dany understands that going now would serve her own ambitions well, but first she must heal Meereen. He tells of her parents' marriage, how the lack of love caused havoc for the realm.
Dany dismisses the night, but before he leaves, he mentions that Daario Naharis has returned. Dany is immediately flustered. She beautifies herself while Barristan Selmy sends Naharis up. He's charming, and she, despite hearing the stuff all the time, is touched. They flirt. He reports of minor martial successes and some new recruits. She wants them watched in case they're spies. He announces that grain is coming down the river from the Lazar, but she explains that the river is now closed to them.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Daario suggests unleashing the dragons against the naval blockade. Dany is not ready for that. She feels encircled by enemies and threats. He says the only way out of that is to attack, find the weakest point in the circle, and break through. She tells him of her potential betrothal. He scoffs at Hizdahr. Daario could end the Sons of the Harpy in one night, kill all the great masters. She thinks they are secure in their pyramids, but he notes that a wedding might indeed get them all out in one place.
Daenerys accuses him of making her a butcher queen. He's dismissive. All kings are butchers. He compares her to ordinary queens, wives and broodmares for kings. She angers. He angers right back. She sends him away and then has Barristan Selmy redeploy the Stormcrows to keep Daario away from her. Future reports are to come through Barristan Selmy. She cannot sleep that night, thinking of Daario Naharis and her dragons and the blood that is already on her hands.
Okay.
So, first thing I wanted to mention, and again, I like to paint a picture for our listeners, you know.
Of course, yes, and you do it quite well.
Well, that's very kind of you. So to describe Meereen's at the northernmost tip of Slavers Bay, and it's principally the sort of southeastern bank of the Skahazaddan River. So it has water on two sides, basically. You have it sort of on the south. It's easier to say that as the bay to the west and the river to the north. The city is walled all the way around, that's the same as King's Landing. I was looking at King's Landing, which I find slightly strange. If you're up against water, why wall that side? I suppose if you don't wall that side, you're encouraging sort of like a amphibious attack.
Right, I guess so. Yeah, I think that's probably the logic.
Both those bodies of water are, of course, important in feeding the city. One for sort of fishing and the other for goods coming down the river. So losing control of them is very serious for the prospects of Meereen, I would say.
Yes, and it's the Carthene ships that are creating this blockade. So her spurning Zarozo and Daxus last chapter, this is the ramifications of him seeing out his promises.
Wait a minute, something's just dawned on me. The 13 ships that she was promised?
That's a good question. Maybe they're like, well, we've already got the ships here. Let's just use these. Would make sense. I hadn't thought of that either.
That's so strange. Yeah, now you've said it. I'm like, oh, it is those ships. They've just turned on them. They didn't leave those ships as the gift they said they would.
Yeah, you're probably right. They already had them there. They must have. They must have had captains and crews to get them there from Karth.
Right. Mackelly, do we need to start this all over again so people don't realize how dumb we are? How many times have we read this chapter and that's never dawned on us until this instant?
No, if you hadn't mentioned it, but it makes perfectly common sense now that you do mention it.
And the alternative makes very little sense. How did 3 Carthene ships sail up the river while there were 13 Carthene ships defending the river? Really?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. No, it makes sense. We do. I mean, it's just the enemies are piling up for Dany. In this same conversation, we learned that, last chapter, Dany was hopeful. She had sent envoys to Tolos, which is an island in Slavers Bay, and Menteris, which is a city on Slavers Bay, in hopes that they might join her cause. But Zaro, last chapter, said, no, that's not happening. They've joined our side. And we learn in this chapter, in this conversation, that they both harshly rejected her. In fact, Menteris sent her envoys' heads back pickled. So, they're living up to their moniker of a city of monsters, I guess.
Yes, and Tolos, of course, joined the naval blockade against Meereen as well. So,
right.
Not great. I will say, just this sort of leaps forward to the conversation with Daario at the end, but the one thing that these ships, so let's assume we've basically got no navy whatsoever, and they've got a navy which is blockading the river and the sea.
Right.
The one thing that ships are vulnerable to is fire.
Yes.
And the one thing that she has kind of unlimited access to is fire via her dragons. So there is that possibility that she could employ the dragons to her aid here. And you know what? If I was in the second round of Carthian ships sent to blockade the thing, I would be very hesitant. I would be trying to find a storm to sink me.
Right. Just getting the little dinghy out at night to row away. I do think she would use her dragons in that capacity if she could control them to get them to do. That's where the issue is.
And to me, that's where throughout this book, her story arc is bending towards she has to confront her fears of her own dragons and marshal them somehow, because she cannot get out of this mess without their help.
No, they're what give her the authority to do the thing she's doing, is that she is Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, owner of 3 dragons.
Right.
Mother of 3 dragons.
The noose is tightening, and she's going to have to... She can't just hope to pull it out of the bottom of the deck, I don't think. She's going to have to go down there and say, hey, guys, you willing to work with me? Bit of give and take here. Although, I don't know how you do that with dragons. Not an expert.
Well, yes, and we get as you mentioned, during her conversation with Daario, she kind of gives us a mental thought update on on the dragon situation. And we learn that Rhaegal and Viserion are just becoming more wild and savage while confined in the dungeons, and Drogon is still off somewhere, and farmers keep turning up with charred bones. And she considers herself a monster for leaving the dragons to this confinement, and and the fact that Drogon kills at will off on his own. First of all, Drogon seems out of her control. Until he comes back, there's really nothing she can do about Drogon. But she does need some sort of plan for the other two. Like you said, that has to happen. Either Drogon has to return, and then she gain control over him in some way, or she's got to learn how to control the other two. She can't keep them chained up in the dark dungeon long term. That's not an option, a long-term option.
It's not an option for the dragons. Presumably they'll wither and die in there, or kill themselves trying to get out of there. But it's also not an option for her, because the moment her enemies gain a full understanding of the situation she's in, well, now she's just a defenseless 15-year-old girl.
Right.
She's not the mother of dragons.
She's just Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen again.
Right. Someone who's probably more afraid of the dragons than anybody else, because she's actually encountered them. Everybody else is just afraid of the stories. She knows the reality.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what her options are. Free the other two, like Drogon? Maybe they have to go out and be wild teenagers, and then come back to her. I don't know. We've been given no information thus far as to
if you
how to
love
do
them,
it.
set them free. But
right.
But I do think that's a reasonable thing, that we haven't been given any information, because she hasn't got any information. She's got and this maybe is where Tyrion's dragon lore interest becomes an interesting plot device, because now he comes to her, presumably for execution, but then he says, "Oh, you're struggling with those dragons? Have you tried peppermint? Just behind their ears."
That sounds solid lore to me.
Tyrion, are you just trying to get me killed so I don't kill you?
No. Yeah, that's what Griff had him doing, writing down everything he knew about dragon lore. So,
but that was for Griff's benefit, so he could be.
Oh, maybe, maybe Griff wanted to take that info,
right? Yeah.
Use it as his own.
But actually, if you think about it, that is, if you know, if young Griff comes as the mega prince, having a little bit of knowledge about the dragons would sweeten the deal somewhat. Hey,
Certainly wouldn't
I've
hurt.
arrived with some cell swords, but I've got something you really want to know, and that's how to curb the enthusiasm of those three.
Yeah. Yeah, could be.
Race between Tyrion and young Griff now. They didn't know
Yeah,
it.
well, we don't know. We're pretty sure who that knight was at the end of last week's chapter. I mean,
We made assumptions.
wearing the bear sigil and taking him to the queen. Now, the queen could be Cersei. We've discussed this. Could be Cersei. Could be Daenerys. I don't think there's a third option there. But if he is taking Tyrion to Daenerys, then he's got a bit of an advantage because the rest of the group on the Shy Maid, their plan is to get to Volantis and either wait for Dany or
Yeah.
if Tyrion's advice is listened to, turn and head west. So
Quite funny if Tyrion was like blindfolded the whole way, and when the blindfold is removed, he's like, "I'll tell you how to look after the dragons." Oh God, it's my sister.
no.
Never mind. So one of the things that Dany did was she created these companies of freedmen and Meereenese. It's not quite working out as she would have hoped.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. No, it's not. That in one small way it is. She created these companies to prevent the Unsullied from, having to do the tasks, being the police force. They're confined to the Great Pyramid. In that way, probably keeping Unsullied alive more than they were when they were out in the streets policing, So in that way, but so the companies we hear about in this chapter are the Brazen Beasts and the Mother's Men. The Mother's Men are the one that attacked the river galleys as they sailed up the Skahazadon unsuccessfully. Yep. But they aren't ending the murders from the Sons of the Harpy. Putting their own Meereenese and freed people out there isn't curbing it in any way, it seems. So,
yep.
And another thing that's not also having intended results are the hostages, the hostage children that Dany has taken. She's not following through on the threat to kill them, which, as the Shafepate Skahaz points out, why did you take the hostages if you're going to do nothing with them? And, we've known Dany for a while now. We could have seen that she's not the murderer of innocent children type. So, even as retribution for killing those innocent Weaver women that come up, she's not going to kill these innocent children as like, 2 wrongs making a right type situation. I'm going to kill these children because you killed those innocent women,
Yeah. I wonder if for a while the Sons of the Harpy were sort of slowed it down a little bit just to sort of like, and then sort of like slowly boiling the frog kind of thing. They started to up their murders night by night to see if Dany would respond, Oh. And once they realized she wasn't responding, they were like, all right, back to business.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Uh-huh.
Yeah, she was never going to do it. She's not the right kind of person to do that.
No. I'm sure the Shafepate's method would have been very effective, but it is also incredibly terrible to kill these children,
Yes.
So,
and plus you have to do it in sort of small doses too. You can't kill them all because then there's nothing to stop them,
Well, true. Yes. Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
So we learn that Great Cleon, the Butcher King, is dead in Astapor, and his successor, who was probably his murderer, took the name of Cleon II and lasted 8 days, I think the Green Grace says, before he too was killed. And then the first Cleon's wife tries to take the throne at that point, and then sort of factions start forming, and there's fighting in the
Yes.
streets. Yeah.
I think how it went was Great Cleon the First was killed by his people when he commanded them to go out and fight the Yunkai. Then Great Cleon the Second was killed after 8 days, and the man that killed Great Cleon the Second and Great Cleon's concubine or wife or someone together were trying to rule the city, and it's not going well. So,
No.
but as to nobody's surprise.
Yeah, this news is terrible for Dany because, I mean, she freed Astapor and now it's a complete ruin. But it also kind of like will firm up her decision to stay in Meereen. The more she hears of this, the more she's like, well, I ain't doing that again. I've realized the mistake I made. Yeah,
can she possibly leave Meereen and it not suffer the same fate right now as Astapor did, or is currently suffering?
It seems unlikely. Although Daario does have an idea, if you basically slaughter all one side of the equation, that would do it.
Right. Well, that's true. Remember, last chapter, Great Cleon's envoy, Lord Gale, spat on Dany when she refused his request to come help fight the Yunkai. So, it looks like Astapor is headed back toward a slave city. If the Yunkai, I mean, someone's going to throw open those gates eventually, right? And the Yunkai are going to swoop in. And that's one less ally for Dany. Not that the Astapori were able to help her out at all at this point, because they had their own problems. But...
because they couldn't rule themselves. I mean, they could have been an ally. They could have been a thorn in the side of the opponents, but...
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't
complete mismanagement.
Yeah.
Just left them where they are now. And, it's back to the question from last week. Wash her hands and go home? If she learns that Aegon is raising the Targaryen banner before she gets a chance to do it, I think we're learning in this chapter. We're getting insight into her mind. When Barristan says, let's just go. Let's go to Westeros where you will be beloved. You will be the prodigal daughter returning home. And she thinks of her 10,000 children here.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think you're right last week when you said, nope, she's not. Even if Fagon gets there and raises the Targaryen standard and says, I'm King Aegon the Sixth, I think you might be right. She's going to see this through.
Yeah. I will say, though, if I was Barristan, I think one of the arguments I would use is like, look, you've freed them. You've given them a chance. They had no chance. Yeah. Now they have a chance. Sure, if you leave, things might backslide here. But let's set up some kind of government that gives them a chance. Set up a council made up of 25% great masters and 75% freed slaves, and make them rule together. And we stay around for a few months and make sure it's working. We just keep an eye on it.
Yes, that's a good point. And it's... it's partially what Dany did when she left Astapor. She left a council in charge, but she left probably too soon to see things, work out. And then Great Cleon had that council killed and just ran the whole thing into the ground with his mismanagement. But you're right. If she's given them an opportunity, and maybe if she can guide them through the creation of a government situation that is stable, then she is free to leave.
Yeah. But and I mean, the great masters want a return to what they had, but where they are now, they could get better than that if they were to play ball, so maybe they would be interested in that, some kind of power sharing arrangement.
Yeah. You'd have to think with how heavy the area is dependent upon the slave trade, someone is going to start enslaving people again. It feels like it's only a matter of time, possibly.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. But I suppose the one thing that Dany should say to her freed slaves is, you can come with me. that you won't be enslaved when we get to Westeros.
Yeah.
I'll find a place for you. There's bound to be one lord who stands against me, and his lands will be your lands.
Yeah. Well, so the Green Grace, no, it's Hizdahr that says, I think the Yunkai would settle for, okay, all the freed people are freed, but let us start capturing and creating slaves going forward. And Dany, she initially, dismisses it, but in a tiny bit back of her head thinks that might be the best that I can get, the best situation that we can ultimately land on. But I was thinking about that, and I was wondering, so does that mean only Yunkai is going to be, a city that generates slaves? And they primarily generate bed slaves. So there's quite a vacuum of the other types of slaves. Is Astapor going to fall back into a slave city? It certainly looks like it is. And Meereen is just going to not follow suit with the other two major slave training cities.
Yep.
I don't know. Slippery slope.
Yeah, for sure. The Green Grace urges Daenerys to marry Hizdahr. I thought perhaps Hizdahr might be a relative of the Green Grace, but I looked it up and they are not related.
No, you're probably thinking about the fact that Hizdahr kept speaking at those council, at the, what's it called? When she holds court, at her court sessions. And one of the Green Grace's cousins, Grazdan, I think his name was, did speak at one of those as well.
That is where I got it from, because that is literally the scene where I thought it was mentioned that they were related. Yeah, okay, so they're not related. So this wasn't pure nepotism, asking her to marry Hizdahr. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Galazza Galare's motivation is here. I mean, obviously, she doesn't hate Daenerys. She doesn't seem to want her downfall to happen immediately, or if she is, she's more subtle than most in indicating that.
Right.
But this is a backslide for sure. Hizdahr. What is Hizdahr's first demand when he becomes king of Meereen? He's going to reopen the fighting pits for sure.
Yes, that's been his whole platform since we've met him.
Right.
Reopening the fighting pits.
And I will say, I think it'd be quite appropriate if the first person in there was Cleon's messenger. That would be
Lord Gale.
Lord Gale.
He's armed with nothing but his spit. It could be effective.
I just wonder why the choice. Why the choice of Hizdahr? Is it just because Hizdahr interacted with Dany and it was noted that they spoke to each other and they didn't seem to hate each other?
Yes, that we don't know, or don't know yet anyway. Marrying marrying Hodor could be effective. Marrying Hizdahr could be effective. I mean, you give the Meereenese a feeling of someone representing them in power, kind of as the Green Grace says, these people are never going to look at you as their queen because you're an outsider. The Loraq, Hizdahr Zo Loraq, the Loraqs are a well-respected, noble family that date back thousands of years. So, show the people you want to integrate into their life, and marriage has been used in Westeros to settle these types of disputes for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. So
that's true.
But on the other hand, it's also one way to remove Dany from power. And there's kind of two ways I can think of. One is they marry, and then Dany is suddenly accidentally killed. And then you've just got a king, Hizdahr, and he's King Hizdahr, and that's the way that it is. Or he decides that he is superior to his queen, and he starts to make decisions without her consent. Then there's a power struggle at the top, and
right. And he by that time knows how much control she has of the dragons, so he's not
Right.
that afraid of that threat anymore. you know.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
But and what
Yeah,
you
but
just said, particularly the first of those two things, sort of ties in with his own confession of ambition and how, whilst obviously he's not totally a fan of everything that's happened since Dany arrived, he is happy about the shake-up of the power structure, because he said it was very, staid and conservative and nothing changed in Meereen.
Right.
And now
Yeah.
she's upended all of that. So there is an opportunity for an ambitious person like Hizdahr to up jump from just a noble to being top dog.
Right. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he's Peter Baelish-like in his, this chaos is going to leave me winning the Game of Thrones here in Meereen.
Right.
Possibly. But you're also right about the fact that the Green Grace was awfully quick to recommend Hizdahr, which might make a suspicious person wonder if they're working together. Does the Green Grace have some sort of minority stake in his fighting pits or something? And this is the way she's going to make her money back?
It wasn't a snap decision. She'd brought him along, right?
Yes, she did. It was planned out. Definitely planned out.
It'd be funny if she chose someone else and she went down and said, sorry, the names are all so similar. It's Reznak.
This Low, this Zoe, something. But the Green Grace says that the Meereenese will see Dany as nothing but a conqueror from across the seas. But that couldn't be less true when you're speaking of specifically Dany, because she's lived her whole life in Essos. She's never even stepped foot in Westeros, and her Targaryen blood is as native to Essos as anyone, if you're going back to the days of Old Valyria.
Very good point. And I'll add a corollary, which is she's only the conqueror of the great families. She's the rescuer of everybody else in Meereen. Everybody else in Meereen was a slave, essentially, and now they're not.
You're right.
So they're not going to feel like she's a conqueror from over the seas. They're going to feel like she's the person who set them
liberator.
free.
Yeah.
Green Grace thinks that if Dany and Hizdahr have a child, that he, I'm guessing, will right all the problems, that he will be some fulfillment of some prophecies that she doesn't actually go into, I don't think. Do you know what the prophecies were she was referring to?
No. Not the ones that the Green Grace was referring to. We know the one that Dany thinks about in her head.
Yes, I understand. That I was asking about the Green Grace. So yeah, but Dany thinks otherwise, because Dany is pretty convinced that she is barren. When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry and the mountains blow in the wind like leaves, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child.
Yeah. So she kind of thinks of it differently in her head this time. That prophecy, if my memory serves, comes from when she asked Mirri Maz Duur when Drogo would be back to his old self. And she says all of these things and then says, only then will he, be as he was or whatever.
Right. It wasn't...
The way she thinks it in this chapter is slightly different.
Yes. So the actual words were not, you will have a child when these things happen. It's just, when her womb quickens again is one of the things that would have to happen for this.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's the fact that she's comparing her womb quickening to all these other improbable
which are
events.
Extremely long. Yes.
Yes. That's I went back and looked it up, and that was how it was worded when the question was asked. When she thinks about it in this instance, she's thinking about it as all those things have to happen, and then her womb will quicken and she will bear a living child.
But of course, I can see why that would infect her mind, that basically she's been told that this is of the same order of magnitude as those other things, which are essentially impossible. And so it's impossible. And so now she connects the two that way. It'd be kind of funny if the prophecy was like, when you find a happy hour on a Tuesday, and when a pint of milk gets spilled, then will your womb quicken.
Right. Wait, those are pretty easy.
Yeah.
Those are pretty easy to find. So you're saying any day now, I guess.
If Hizdahr does stop the murders for 90 days and they get married on the 91st day, if he manages this, what does that mean? I tell you what that means for me. It means that he's got a bit too much power with the Sons of the Harpy.
Right? Yes. What is his association with the Sons of the Harpy if he has that level of influence over them?
Right. Let's err on the side of he's a complete innocent here. But to stop the murders, he's got to go to the Sons of the Harpy and say, hey, stop it for 90 days and then I'll be king. And the Sons of the Harpy have to hear that and say, that would be good.
Right.
So he's not anti the Sons of the Harpy, because if he was like, you guys are terrible and you're ruining our beautiful city, they wouldn't want him to be king.
True. I see your logic there.
So he's either in on it or he's sympathetic to them. And either way, that's not good for Dany as far as I can see. And in actual fact, I think Dany should get betrothed every 90 days, and anyone who succeeds should be immediately hung.
Right. Clearly you have too much power. Yes.
Off with his head.
Yeah. Huh. I hadn't thought about it from that aspect. I was thinking about, wait, you had this power all along to produce peace and you never acted on it? Why is that, Hizdahr? Why is
good
it that
point?
You were
yeah.
capable
Well, there was
of
nothing
this?
in it for me until you offered your hand in marriage. Now it seemed worth it, you know.
When he did have something in it for him, he wanted those fighting pits reopened. He could have used this as a bargaining chip. He could have had those pits open ages ago.
That's a good point. Hey, if I keep this murders down for 90 days, can I open those pits?
And should Dany be more angry? If he's successful, that he could have stopped the killings and never did? Maybe this is a false test. Like, if you prove that you could do this, then you're in big trouble because you could have done this all along and you never did. But she thinks of the murder. She speaks to the Green Grace about the murders of the three Weavers, and I just wanted to mention them real quick. This could just be a coincidence because I'm sure there are many Weavers in Meereen.
It's the same ones, Mackelly. It's the same.
You think so? Okay. Yeah. That in Dany 1 of this book, as we talked about a few minutes ago, the Green Grace's cousin Grazdan petitioned for a portion of the earnings from 6 former slave weavers who were really talented, and Dany not only ruled against Grazdan, but commanded Grazdan to buy these weavers the finest loom that money can buy. And Dany mentions she has one of their tapestries hanging above her bed. You could certainly see that in the gratitude for that, they might give Dany a nice wall hanging, you know? So
right, exactly. That's what happened, Mackelly.
Okay, I think so too. I can't say for sure, but it certainly fits. But did she bring this up to the Green Grace because she knows that it was very possibly her cousin that was involved in the murder of these weavers, and she wanted to gauge the Green Grace's reaction to determine Grazdan's involvement?
Yeah,
I
good
don't
point.
know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So we're not sure about Hizdahr, really, but he's pretty candid with Daenerys about his feelings and his motives, you know. He doesn't deny the ambition that he feels and that he doesn't love her, you know. He says, you know, I'm attracted to you. No, nobody wouldn't be attracted to you, but
right. He
doesn't kiss her passionately. He's no Daario.
No, he's not. His kiss was very dry and the description sounded like just a peck. Maybe he was trying to be respectful of his queen and not, you know, go in and maul her face.
I will say, though, that it's always good to me if you're sort of like selling a big lie to pepper it with some truths, you know.
Uh-huh.
So the big lie is that he's running the Sons of the Harpy. Perhaps.
Right, he's the Harpy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the little truths are that he doesn't really love her. He's kind of ambitious and he'd like to be king. He's happy that the old order was thrown into turmoil by her arrival. And I think if I really tried, maybe if I just reached out to all of my friends and their friends, I could stop these murders for 90 days. Yeah, I think I could try that, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I follow what I'm picking up what you're putting down there.
Yeah.
He's not even concerned that she plans to return to Westeros someday. And if he doesn't love her, I mean, that's not the worst thing, because then she leaves him as the unquestioned king of Meereen, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's very true. That is the quintessential problem in The Bachelor. When they both want to live in their home city. It's like, dude, you're not going to get over that one, you know?
Right.
Love conquers all, but love found over 3 weeks of filming does not conquer that particular problem.
No. Yeah, I see. I can see how there's a Bachelor thread going on. Yeah, I could follow it. So Dany says that Skahaz, the Shave Pate, will be angry about this wedding idea, but Reznak, the Seneschal, will be joyous. And Skahaz is he's a curious character to me, because he's Meereenese. Like, he didn't come with Dany to Meereen. He's here. He's Meereenese. And he is willing to punish and murder his own people in Dany's name. And we don't know. Was he known to rail against the slave society before Dany's arrival? Or did her arrival cause him to see the error of their ways? Or could he be too committed to this, and he's actually working against her, and he's actually the Harpy, keeping his friends close and his enemies closer type situation?
Pepper the big lie with some small truths, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Meanwhile, poor Reznak, he's been wanting peace since the beginning, and wanting to bring these two sides together harmoniously. But Quaithe gave that warning not to trust the perfumed Seneschal that Dany thinks about in this chapter.
Yep.
And that literally describes Reznak. It could be too on the nose, maybe the wrong perfumed Seneschal. We discussed Varys or Illyrio as the possibilities instead of Reznak. But Dany has discounted pretty much any counsel that Reznak has given because of Quaithe's prophecy. I think that was last chapter or the one before. So, yeah.
Quaithe went to the John Arryn school of giving advice.
Right.
But not that one.
Did I say the? I didn't say I said the. That's not the I meant.
So I got one for you, and it's kind of like a riddle because I didn't understand it, basically. So you just got to bail me out here. Barristan said that Dany's grandfather, who was Jaehaerys II, I happen to know from my extensive knowledge and background reading.
Well done.
He insisted that his son Aerys, who would become Dany's father, and his daughter Rhaella, Jaehaerys' daughter Rhaella, i.e. siblings Aerys and Rhaella, married. A woods witch had told Jaehaerys, and possibly Jaehaerys' father Aegon, that the prince who was promised would be born of their line.
Right.
Tell me more of this woods witch. What do I need to know? Okay.
Well, so Barristan mentions.
Have you already talked about this in background some other time and I've forgotten?
Probably. When I tell you, when I get into it, but it's been a while, so it's worth me explaining. So Barristan also mentions that this woods witch was a friend of Jenny of Oldstones, not our regular guest host.
Yeah. But the fictional Jenny of Oldstones.
Yes,
not the legendary, but the fictional.
No, exactly. And that the woods witch died at Summerhall. So Jenny of Oldstones, not our friend and regular guest host on this show, was the wife of Prince Duncan, Aegon V's eldest son and heir, and he gave up the right to the throne when he married a commoner. That's how his brother Jaehaerys II ended up becoming king, because Prince Duncan gave up his right.
Okay.
So all that Barristan tells Dany says, what happened to this woods witch? All that Barristan says is Summerhall. And Dany knows her thoughts are something like, that word just meant doom or something along those lines, darkness and doom. Right. She's referring to the tragedy at Summerhall, where supposedly Aegon V tried to hatch dragon eggs with wildfire and managed to burn the castle and all in it. All we have are a little bit of writing that didn't get destroyed of what had happened. And that's what can kind of be pieced together. It was all to celebrate the impending birth of his great-grandson, Rhaegar, who was born that day.
The day of the tragedy, yeah.
Yes. Okay, the Woods Witch, though, did not die at the tragedy of Summerhall.
Okay.
Because Arya met her as the ghost of Highheart, the prophecy-distilling albino dwarf woman that is still out there distilling prophecies.
Distilling prophecies, yes. Okay, all right, great.
So, yeah.
That's
what's going on there.
Yeah.
Might have been a bit confusing, but that's how it all...
Probably in the final edit it won't come across as that confusing, but believe me, what's hit the cutting room floor was a lot of discussion.
Yes.
Barristan suggests sending away Daario so that Dany can rest. Yeah, that is a bit of a Jorah Mormont move, if you ask me. Why don't you get some rest rather than sleeping with that hunky guy?
Yeah.
Dany gets all aflutter at the name of Daario Naharis, and she quickly bathes and preens herself for his arrival, and sends Barristan Selmy away, which is a sign. He doesn't leave her aside for just about anything.
Yeah, Barristan's a smart guy, well accustomed to reading his liege's moods, facial expressions, thoughts. So I bet he knows what was on her mind when she went from being too tired to deal with anything to send him up immediately. So, but the description of Daario, every time I hear it, it always seems a bit cartoonish to me.
Me too. Me too. The Daario
wearing...
in the TV show was good because he's good looking and dashing and, sort of like a...
Yes, I vaguely remember.
Hero of the olden times. But yeah, this Daario has got like a multicolored pointy beard and he just must look...
Yeah, he's wearing striped pants, high purple boots, a vest of gold rings.
If he was a pirate on a ship, he would look ridiculous. But
right, his purple beard, he wears it in a trident, but the mustache part is gold. So the top part is gold, the bottom part is purple, and he has a gold tooth. He conjures in my mind when I think of Daario when they describe him. I picture Puss in Boots from the Shrek movies.
Very good. Yes.
He just. That's who I think
I
of.
see Yosemite Sam a little bit.
Yes, because of the boots and the mustache and the beard, yes.
Okay, so what we're saying is we wouldn't sleep with Daario. Okay.
Yeah,
not doing it for us.
in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly. So Daario provides some information about what he was successful with on his mission, but it feels like everything he's doing is sort of like thimblefuls of water to hold back a flood. You know what I mean? It's like an alliance with the Lazarene. What can they bring? A few lambs, perhaps, but they can't even get those lambs into Meereen anymore because the river is blocked. So
yes, if they can get food from the Meereenese, from the Lazarene, it would be helpful. But as you said, how? Now they can't even get the food to them. The Lazarene are very peaceful people. The Dothraki call them the Lamb Men because they're just not a fighting.
But people. I tell you what, they're Team Daenerys.
Yes,
because basically they're the ones who get enslaved by everybody else.
True. Yes, they are going to need an escort though, because as we've been saying, they're peaceful people. So. They're not really meant to defend themselves, at least well enough, against these Carthene ships. And the Stormcrows could be useful in such manner, and Dany does assign them that task in anger when she and Daario have a falling out here in this at the end of this chapter.
What did you think of their falling out? To me, their falling out was all about the fact she's getting married. That he doesn't want it. She feels a bit guilty about it because she knows she's marrying for expedience rather than love.
Yeah. He plays it off like, oh, whatever. Why don't you marry a eunuch if you're going to marry that dried up old guy? But yes, I think that he starts getting angry. He starts kind of basically saying that she's becoming a domesticated, subservient queen to Hizdahr if she marries him. And, I think things just get heated between the two because she takes offense to that and neither of them are going to back down.
Yeah. And some of it is triggered by his plan for ridding her of the Great Masters, which is wedding's a good idea. Bring them all out of their pyramids where they are safe into the open, and then we'll slaughter them all. And look, you and I are peace-loving people, Mackelly, but there's something to be said for Daario's plan. If Daario were to go ahead with his plan without Dany's permission, she probably would be okay with it after the fact. She'd scold him severely.
Right. Yes. Yeah, it would definitely be effective. Like you said, if you put 0 at the other end of the equation from you, solving the math gets real easy.
I will say, though, it is important for people like Resnek and Skahaz to be involved because the slaves won't know how to run the city. And they need people who've been on the other side of that to help them run the city. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I think that's kind of what's gone on in Astapor, that the slaves took over and killed what was left of the sort of ruling class, and then chaos descended, basically.
Right. Yes, it turned their sons into the new Unsullied and, everything.
But I'd rather Resnak and Skahaz than the Great Masters themselves, because they at least seem to have converted over to
hopefully
the Dany cause.
Yeah, if you could take them at face value, then they seem to have. Whereas in Astapor, there was no one left once that council that was meant to govern, once they were murdered, and then the good masters were killed and their children were enslaved. It just descended into complete chaos, and we just had a reversal of all the problems that were previously existing, basically.
It's time for some spoilers, Mackelly. If you want the spoiler section, you need to join us at the upper tiers of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer levels, and then Mackelly will tell you what's to come. Thank you for the spoilers, Mackelly. Interesting as ever. Give me some background.
Okay, well, so Dany shares a meal with the Green Grace, Galazza Galare, and it's quite apparent that she is someone of high religious importance. And Dany notes that the Green Grace is accompanied by young girls that she calls White Graces. But what else do we know about these Graces? Well, I'm about to tell you what I know about these Graces. They are priestesses of the Ghiscari religion. In every Ghiscari city, there is a temple known as the Temple of the Graces that houses these women. And the Graces wear different color robes that signify what type of Grace they are. And here are the known robe colors. So we just mentioned the White Graces. They are young girls of noble birth, not old enough to serve in the pleasure gardens found in the Temple of the Graces. Then we have the Red Graces. These are the women who are currently serving their mandatory 1 year in those pleasure gardens. Each night, they wait in a little alcove inside the pleasure gardens to see if a man chooses them. If she isn't chosen, the Red Grace remains in that alcove until the sun comes up. Okay, now we've got the Blue Graces. Those are the healers of the religion. And then that brings us to the Green Grace, the highest priestess of her order. There seems to be only one Green Grace in each city's temple. So Galazza Galare is the only one wearing green in the Temple of the Graces in Meereen. Finally, we've got pink, gold, and purple Graces. We know that these graces exist because of references to them in the material, but we don't yet know what their function or specialties are.
Okay. Thank you. Comparison with the television show, things are a little bit different. Hizdahr, I couldn't. When I say I couldn't find this out, I could have found this out if I tried a bit harder, but I didn't. So, Dany has had Hizdahr arrested and is in jail, and then something happens to one of her close associates, basically a run-in with the Sons of the Harpy, and that's the sort of tipping point for her, where she decides, unprompted, to go and free him, and while she's freeing him, she's like, we're also going to get married. And he's like, somewhat befuddled that this is happening, but it's better than where he was, so he's okay with it. But yeah, so there's no Green Grace, there's no sort of backstory about her, about the Woods Witch. None of that happens. But she does end up betrothed to Hizdahr in a slightly different way.
Okay. Well, it all ended up in the same way, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a tricky bit of story. I mean, you've seen how much we've struggled tonight. It's a tricky bit of story to have brought to the TV. So, again, the more we do this, the more I have a bit of sympathy for the TV show. Even when it wasn't great, it was hard. What they were trying to do was very difficult.
In this situation here in Meereen is very complicated, and so many storylines, and they were going to have to simplify it in some level. Yeah,
the kicker of it as well is that it's complicated, but it doesn't have very much forward momentum. So it's hard to sort of like televise that without it seeming same and quite boring, really.
Right, I follow.
Pedantry, I didn't find any pedantry. Anything from you?
No, nothing from me.
Okay.
We're good.
Well, let's do some news and notes. Colossus, the company who created the direwolves from their DNA, posted a video, which was then shared by George R.R. Martin, with an update on the 3 wolf pups. They're growing and developing their own personalities. All 3 are tracking well above the usual grey wolf size. The boys, Remus and Romulus, will soon have a doctor appointment where Colossus will get a peek at how their bone structure and musculature make up compared to direwolves. Khaleesi is still too small to be mixed in with the boys, but they're working toward that day by getting her closer and closer to her brothers using fencing. Be careful. I know from personal experience.
Yes, you do. Keep that fencing up for as long as you can. Yeah, very cool. I still think that Khaleesi has the wrong name. It should be Sansa or Nymeria or something like that. But Arya,
you know what it is? It's when they what they did was, I bet there are some nerds at Colossus, right? And they knew.
Oh, sure.
They absolutely knew. But the marketing people got involved and they were like, Khaleesi. We're like, oh, man.
Yeah.
You've just got the wrong end of the stick.
No. Direwolves have nothing to do with the Dothraki. So
it's like, did you ever see that? There was a greeting card that mixed the various worlds, and it was basically Jean-Luc Picard, and he was quoted in the text as saying, "Use the Force, Harry." And then it attributed it to Gandalf,
Well done. Anyway, we have a really nice review from TJ on Apple Podcasts, and I will read it for you. The title is Finally Caught Up! ! Started from the beginning 3 months ago, and I breezed right through. You sure did. 3 months.
3 months.
That's pretty.
Yeah,
that's an aggressive
cranking
pace.
It out right there. So basically, no murders in those 3 months. I'm guessing. Yeah.
I guess not.
TJ gets the Khaleesi's hand in marriage.
The analysis of the story is top tier and really helped my understanding of the books. These guys have been keeping me company during my long work hours in a car by myself, and I don't know what I'm going to do having to wait for a new episode every week. Such a great podcast. Even if I cringe a little bit every time they refer to Stafford Lannister as a dullard.
Look, first of all, TJ, thank you ever so much.
Yes.
But I didn't know we had Stafford Lannister fans that we were offending.
I don't. Yeah, I read that earlier, and I wasn't quite sure. First of all, it wasn't us that called him a dullard. It was Brendan Tully that called him a dullard. We were just repeating his words.
Brendan Tully is the kind of man who's going to have criticism for anyone who doesn't meet his exacting standards. So, being called a dullard by by Brendan Tully is no great shame.
Right. Yes.
I feel like if Stafford Lannister comes back up again, I'm going to be very careful to point out his positive assets.
Yes, we should. We should balance things out. I mean,
for sure.
Brendan Tully to be the one that color our entire
opinion. What did he
opinion.
ever do? Yeah, so he's a better shot with a flaming arrow than his nephew. Big deal.
Right.
I don't even know if that happened in the book.
It did. Yes. It did. Well, thank you, TJ. We really appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review. It's very kind of you.
Suggestions? I really don't have any.
I would suggest you join the Discord community if you're not already a member.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harder to do while you're driving, but...
Oh, this is true. Well, you could, not to drop any marketing pitch here, but you could join our Buy Me a Coffee and listen to our Wildfire side chats and things like that. That's always something to pass the time. I'm just saying.
That's a good idea. All right. Thanks again, TJ. Let's conclude this one. So Dany's love life is in turmoil. She's semi-betrothed to a man who doesn't love her, nor her him. And she's at loggerhead with the man that she clearly does love, or at least lust after.
So I mean, as we've been discussing, are the Green Grace and Hizdahr on the up and up? It is a bit suspicious that she physically brought him with her, maybe she knows. I mean, she's the Green Grace. Maybe she knows he's the only one that can save this city, or maybe they're both trying to manipulate her, and they've got this tag team plan worked out here.
This is a tiny bit rude and might have to get cut, but one of my all-time favorite comedians is Billy Connolly, the Scottish comedian, and he has a bit about. At what point in the proceedings you're supposed to put a condom on? That's as rude as it's going to get. Because he says something else. He says, surely you're not supposed to arrive with it on. And that is what the Green Grace did. Not only do I have a suggestion for who you should marry, but here he is.
He's waiting right outside the door. He's been listening to this whole conversation. Yes. But, Hizdahr seems awfully confident that he can stop these Sons of the Harpy murders.
Awfully confident.
Yes. It's kind of like we're talking about. It's kind of a double-edged sword if he's successful, right? I mean, on one hand, great, 3 months of peace. That's what you're looking for. But on the other hand, how and why does this guy have so much influence? So,
yeah.
Further
evidence that Dany is committed to staying in Meereen. I mean, here's another 3 months right here.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then she's going to get married, and then she's going to rule as a couple, so she is not fleeing, not anytime soon. But as I said, the noose is tightening,
Yes.
Meereen's a pretty defendable city, but she has very few friends and allies outside of a very narrow slice of people within her pyramid, basically.
Right. Basically, yes. Right. Yeah. And she has to figure out what to do with the dragons.
Yeah.
I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, that's really her best way out of this situation, is to figure out how to control the dragons.
Yeah. And I'll say again, I think Daario's plan to murder all the Great Masters has a little bit of potential. And I might, if I was Dany, give him a sort of like, no, you mustn't, wink, wink.
Yeah. He names all the noble houses, and she says, I don't have any proof that they're involved. That's true. She doesn't have any proof. But I wonder if they were gone, if things might improve in the city.
Oh, yeah. They would, Mackelly. They would. But it's a crime to kill them all, for sure.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
up next time is a chapter called The Lost Lord, I believe, which is extremely exciting when we get a non-POV character. So looking forward to that.
Yes.
At the moment, there's 4 ways that you can help us. You can leave us a 5-star rating and a review like TJ did. That'd be great. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhall. There you can join us at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest, and the upper tiers get you the spoiler talk. You can make a donation directly to our cause at our website, ghostsofharrenhall.buzzsprout.com. Or, just for a short time longer, you can buy merchandise from our merchandise site, ghostsofharrenhall.threadless.com.
And hey, if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, we could send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode's show notes. Please just keep in mind we have no means of responding, but we do enjoy reading them, especially when they say nice things. And if you're interested in keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, you can check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.